to our next speaker. Miguel Neves, the floor is yours.
Part of the big family of Skifts. So you have a wonderful observation point on what's happening in the tourism industry and what's happened in the tourism industry, and mainly in terms of meetings and events, which has been probably the most severely hit by the stop given to all type of movements of people around the world. So how do you see now in this moment the situation and what's been happening in the last 1 year and a half?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Yeah, it's been challenging. I think most of the meetings and events industries pretty much stopped. Anybody that was very much set on the physical side of events that wasn't able to do online events, anything like that. And that, of course, is part of the bigger business travel conversation. It's been really, really challenging. I think at the moment we're definitely seeing the leisure side of things recovering a lot faster. And I think that's really a positive sign. But as you say, the meetings is really more on the business side. And the business travel is taking a lot longer, and I think there's a lot of reasons around that. Obviously, the COVID pandemic is the main reason for that, but it's recovering really slowly. And I think a lot of this, what we're tracking, are the company policies. A lot of companies are not allowing people to travel. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Some of it is the safety, of course. For a long time they couldn't get any insurance for regular business travel that would cover anything to do with COVID, and that was a big issue. I think also a lot of companies are looking at the budget. In 2020 they had budget. And they didn't use it. And then in 2021, they didn't really allocate any budget because they didn't think they were going to travel. And now they're kind of thinking, well, we did business anyway. Things happened anyway. Do we really need to go to conferences? Do we really need to do all this business travel? And my personal view is that yes, you do, but maybe not all. And I do think that things will be a little bit different. I would personally like to see a more sustainable industry. I think we talk a lot about sustainability, but I think we also have to acknowledge
many words,
that,
but not much.
Yeah, exactly. And I think if we really are serious about sustainability, then there is a reduction in certain types of travel that has to happen. So it's not just growth and sustainability aren't really compatible, at least in the same way that we're used to seeing it. So I'd like to see that. And I think there's also an element of it, which is that the hybrid workforce, the idea that a lot of people are working from home now. A lot of companies have given up big offices. The working world is very different. I've been working from home for the last 4 years, for example, and I don't really have any urge to go back to a big city and work in an office. And so I think there's a bit of a shift there as well. And I think that's partially COVID related.
My curiosity, and this is also a question I've asked many others, is from what you've seen in this period, apart from the first shock in the beginning of last year, have you seen the meeting industry preparing somehow for a new world, or just, like many, just complaining and begging for money or subsidies and something like that?
A bit of both. I think we saw this big pivot when the COVID pandemic hit. We saw this big pivot where people went online and did lots of things online, and the business model is very different. People that are doing hotels, that are doing hospitality, that are doing catering, everything like that, they can't just go online.
Obviously.
So that's exactly. And meeting and event planners can go online, but they're also usually tied into commissions and business practices that are very different. So the way that they make money is very different. So some have adapted well and have figured it out, but a lot have sort of done it while they had to. And now they're very happy to kind of offer their services again.
Yeah.
So what I'm witnessing now is this unpivot, this kind of like, let's go back to where we were. And it's interesting when you look at websites of a lot of the major event organizers, some have completely removed virtual events from their websites. They've sort of gone like, okay, let's get rid of this. We don't need to do this anymore. Yes. But during the pandemic, their websites completely changed and their products completely changed. So it's interesting to see. I've seen some good adaptations, but I've also seen companies that invested in technology and invested in learning technology, but I couldn't really see that technology ever being, long term. You look at it, and it's hard for a event company to compete with a software company. When they're kind of bringing in developers, doing something. I don't think event companies can necessarily kind of transform into technology companies. So I think the unpivot is probably correct. But I think having a balance, being able to offer clients live events, but also helping clients to create the online side of events. Maybe it's just, capturing some of the content, using some of the things online. I think that's going to continue to be a valuable service. And when we go to all this work and all this expense to create an event where people get together and discuss important things, it makes sense to capture that. And it makes sense to have that available online or that available on demand afterwards. So I think it's important that companies keep that part as part of their services, because we don't know if the COVID pandemic is over. We don't know if it's going to make it hard again to meet. So I think it's good to just be prepared and be able to offer a complete service.
Yeah, so if I may say it badly, technology more as a patch for difficult times than a real strategic idea.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think a lot of people went that way. I'd like to see a continued investment. I think it would be smart to continuously invest and really have that strategic, concept, have those strategic concepts as part of the products that you can offer.
Yeah, so with regards to technology, since in this period many have heavily used and also many who hadn't have the habit of using technology, So people has got accustomed to use more tools like this. And how you see for the future the role of technology in this industry?
Well, technology has moved very, very quickly. Even from this time last year, the platforms that we're using that looked like what they looked like this time last year to what they look like now is completely different. They've really developed. A lot of people say that during the last year, platforms developed as much as they would normally develop in 10 years. So I think it's important to be able to take advantage of that. We now have very robust, very good virtual event platforms. Now, I don't think we have to necessarily replace events with virtual events, but if we can create online experiences for people that can't come to physical events, then I think that's very valuable. I think planners and even audiences are more used to technology than before. Again, we had to learn. We had to just figure it out, and we did, right? So now we're more used to it. Of course, there's also backlash and there's Zoom fatigue, and people are a bit tired of looking at a screen all day. Of course. But I think we're learning how to use them better, right? So I think what we used to do is at the beginning of the COVID pandemic, we went and did 8-hour online events, which was the same as we did on site. Now we know that's too much. Nobody wants to sit through 8 hours of content online. And if you create smaller, more engaging, more kind of Netflix style content, that works well online, right? So I think those things are important for us to be able to kind of acknowledge and get the experience and then use going forward. So I'm really excited about the kind of technology hangover. I don't know if I would use that term. I think it's more of a technology kind of explosion, and we're having to figure out what the best pieces of that explosion are and how to really make them work for future events. And I think that every academic conference, every scientific conference really should have a good way to involve people online. And that doesn't have to be a very complex hybrid program with lots of different channels online. It can just be a really good library of content afterwards that people can pay a small amount of money to access, for example. If there's excitement around a topic, around an event, there's also going to be excitement for people who can't be there physically. So let's give them something good to consume through technology is really the answer.
And what we've seen is that without doubts, many events have had a much wider audience in this period than
Absolutely. But I would say that's true. But our research also points to much more saturation and many more events competing with each other. Because, an Asian association used to do an event in April and a European association used to do an event in June. Now they run 4 events and they're all competing with each other. So the potential for reach is there, but in practice, there's expansion, but there's also contraction because people are, kind of picking. They don't sign up for a whole conference. They sign up for one session of the conference, so it becomes everybody is in competition with everybody.
So the world will be more crowded with the events because it's relatively easier to plan these things online than in presence.
Exactly. It's easier. It's cheaper. You can also get speakers to give up half an hour of their time to speak on Zoom rather than travel for 3 days.
Yes.
That sounds a little bit better if you have a busy schedule.
Like now for you.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, well, Miguel, many thanks for your views that are really interesting for us, and
you're very welcome. Thank you for having me. It's always interesting to discuss these topics, and I wish everybody a lot of success. Hopefully, a great week here.
We'll see what the future will give us on this side.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Thank you.